welcome to Humanities on the Road. Today we are at the Society for Contemporary Craft in Pittsburgh for African Arts of the Yoruba Diaspora with Temujin Ekunfeyo. And I'm Tracy Matisak. Humanities on the Road is a joint project between the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and the Pennsylvania Cable Network, and the goal is to bring together people from all across Pennsylvania to talk about history and the arts and all the important ideas that shape our world. We want to extend special thanks to our host today, the Society for Contemporary Craft. You know, contemporary craft showcases the best artists working in craft media through a series of exhibitions and educational programs. And nationally, contemporary craft is among just a handful of exclusively craft-focused organizations. And in fact, out of that small group, contemporary craft is really even more distinctive because of its focus on multicultural art. So here they explore themes like crossing cultural boundaries, art in the environment, and the urban experience. Well, joining me now to tell us a little bit more is Janet Mccall. She is the Executive Director of the Society for Contemporary Craft, and Janet's going to tell us a little bit more about the ideas behind the art and how it is that contemporary craft engages the public in the creative experience. Janet, welcome.
I think it's very exciting that in these themed shows, artists are working with what had been traditional craft materials in very unexpected new ways. And they're using these materials to express their ideas and their feelings about life as contemporary artists. They are prodding and provoking us and getting us to think in different ways about some of the questions they're asking, and it helps us understand our lives and the world that we're living in better. The other thing I wanted to mention is we offer many hands-on workshops here in our education center, and the hand and its role in creativity is central in that. And we feel very strongly that we're all spending too much time in cyberspace these days and, you know, using a couple of fingers, and the hand is a very powerful tool. For, you know, centuries humans have dreamed ideas and used hands and materials to create those, and so that's a central part of what we do here as well.
Well, Janet, thank you so much for being with us and for hosting us. It's great to be here. And you know, that really is just a small part of what's offered here at the Society for Contemporary Crafts. So we would strongly encourage you to come and visit and learn more for yourself. Let me tell you a little bit about our speaker today. Temujin Ekunfeyo is a Commonwealth speaker with the Pennsylvania Humanities Council. He is a priest in the Yoruba religion and has been a priest since 1978. He is also a storyteller, he's a drummer, an artisan, and an instrument maker. He has studied anthropology and theater at the University of Pittsburgh, and he's also studied African dance, drumming, and languages at the Olatunji Center for African Culture in New York City. So with all that said, please join me as we welcome Temujin Ekunfeyo.
Alaroye yokode, tanilawana yokode, iba orisha mawo. Alaroye yokode, alaroye yokode, tanilawana yokode, iba orisha mawo. Alaroye yokode, ibarago mojuba, ibarago. The song I just sang was brought to the New World by people from what is now called Nigeria, people who called themselves Lukumi, who are now generally known as the Yoruba. Yoruba people originally was just one kingdom. It was the nickname for the people from the kingdom of Oyo. But with the institution of colonialism and the Oyo being in charge of the empire at the time, they started to call all of the people who spoke the similar language Yoruba, which bothered a lot of the other people. That's like you're from Pittsburgh and they say you're from Chicago. It's wrong. But things get put in place and people wind up learning to live with it. But the culture started coming over on ships with people in chains, starting, in the late 1700s, early 1800s. The Yoruba peoples were late getting involved in the slave trade, either as captives or as people who were actually dealing with slaves. And as a result of them being so late, that was one of the reasons that their culture happened to survive in various parts of the diaspora. Didn't survive here in the United States, though many people of Yoruba descent were brought here. The slave owners here were very nervous about having slaves maintain their culture. When you still think of yourself as a human being, it's hard to keep you a captive. Because like new lions that have been caught in the bush and put in a cage in the zoo, they haven't forgotten that they're lions. You get too close to the cage, you'll wind up being dinner. New captives that have been taken out of their homelands haven't forgotten that they weren't captives up until just a few months ago. And so they resist being captives. One of the ways of resisting being a captive is to not let your culture go away. Now here, to speak any of the African languages was a death sentence. To make or play drums was a death sentence. Keep that going long enough, things will die out. You kill off enough folks who know something, things will die out. But in Cuba, that didn't happen. The slave owners there were pretty much of the opinion that the best way to accommodate with those who they wanted to keep as captives was to allow them to maintain good parts of their culture. Even the religious practices. There was a priest, he was actually working in Peru. His name was Juan Matienzo. Juan Matienzo came up with the idea that the best way to convert people from their pagan beliefs to Catholicism was to accommodate some sort of mixture or blend between them. And in the process, the captive peoples would realize that this new religion was superior to theirs, and they would give up theirs and take on the new one. Didn't work that way. The assumption there was that the other folks were stupid and they didn't value their own culture. And the folks are going, hey man, they're letting us practice our own religion over here. And they want us to blend it with theirs. Great, we'll do that. And that way we can maintain ours. And they'll be happy and they'll leave us alone. And that's precisely what happened. As a result of that happening in Cuba, a boy born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, got to be a priest of a West African religion. I've not been to Africa. But then again, neither of any of the priests that initiated me. They were either initiated here in the United States or they were initiated in Cuba and then came here to the United States to teach the religion, which is how I got involved. Being a teenager in the 60s, late 50s and early 60s, with the bus boycotts and the riots about black children trying to get an education in segregated schools and the whole Black Pride and Black Power movement, I was involved in all of that. So my involvement as an Olorisha, a member of the priesthood, is as much a political statement as it is a religious statement. Now, this drum I played, I made this drum. Ordinarily, drums are made from hollowed logs. I've done that. It's an awful lot of work. It is. This was not easy, but having to hollow out a log to make a drum, you've got at least a month's worth of work before you can even start to think about putting the skin on it. Now, I used to live in the Homewood area of Pittsburgh, and I'm driving down Bennett Street, and there's all these beautiful old houses with wooden tapering columns holding up the roof of the porch. And I looked at them and said, boy, those shape like drums. If I ever get a hold of one, I'm going to make a drum out of it. Not long afterwards, I was teaching martial arts at a youth center that used to be a hardware store. On the top of the hardware store was a storage shed. In the storage shed was a tapered wooden column. I tied it to the handlebars of my bike, took it back to my workshop, cut it up in 3 pieces, made the first porch column drum. This one would be the great-great-grandchild of that drum. I just made this drum in November of last year. I made this one to replace one that was stolen from me. I'm still sad about that, but since I knew what to do and I could make a new one, I only cried for a little while. And I went to a place called Construction Junction, bought myself another column, strip the paint off, cut it down, and I have this drum. Now, the head on this is calf skin. There's ropes holding it down. The ropes are not there for decoration. That actually is how the drum head is put in place and how the drum head is tuned. If I want the pitch to go up, then I would put more twists in these up and down ropes, tighten the drum, get a higher pitch. Drum like this has three basic sounds. There's bass and tone and slap. And if you put the three together, you get drum music. Otherwise, you have noise. Most people think that all you have to do to play a drum is go. If that was true, then everybody just be running around making noise. Piano's one of the easiest instruments in the world to make noise on. I can bang on a piano all day long, and they're not going to call me to Carnegie Hall. It's not going to happen. And you can bang on a drum like this all day long, and no one's going to come and invite you to drum for dancers or drum for a Latin band or drum for a jazz band. It's not going to happen. I got involved in the study of the religion and the practice of the religion in 1969. I had been aware of the Yoruba people because I was interested in African art. And you can't get a book on African art and not see an awful lot of stuff carved by Yoruba people. It's not almost impossible, it is impossible. And I kept saying, wow, boy, these Yorubas are really interesting. And I wonder, could I be one of them people? Turns out I am. I am Yoruba by blood on both sides of my family. My mother's people and my father's people all come from there. And when Nigerians meet me, 9 times out of 10, they will speak to me in Yoruba because they expect me to answer because I look the way I do. I look like where I come from. And I do speak the language, not as well as I would like to, but I can at least answer the greeting when it's given. Oh, sir, when you got in my cab, oh, brother, when I saw you on the street, I said, he is a Yoruba man. And I am. Now, what got me started was there's a community of people in New York City, in Harlem, and they wound up in an article in Look magazine, January in 1969. I saw this article, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, yeah, are these folks legit? Or did they read a couple of few books and decide, yeah, we all Yorubas now, and we're gonna put on some African clothes. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to open a temple. Yeah, that's what we... And that wasn't so. The two founders of the temple, Osejiman Adefumi and Chris Oleana, were the first 2 African Americans to travel to Cuba to be initiated in the priesthood. They went in 1959. Revolution was still going on. Story I was told, part of the ritual is you go to the river, there's a double baptism. You go to the river and you're baptized, and then later you're baptized again in an herbal bath. On the way to the river, they were stopped by the troops of Batista. And they trained the spotlight on them and the machine guns. Oh, it's the religion, okay. And they let them alone. And they drove off. And they went down and did the ritual. On the way back, Fidel's troops stopped them. Oh, it's the religion, never mind. And they, and they drove away and left them alone. When they got back to the States, they weren't able to go back to Cuba because not long after that, the embargo set in. So those 2 men, though they were initiated in Cuba, never got a chance to go back again. But the religion did continue to grow. Other Cubans came, especially after the revolution. A lot of people fled and came to the United States. Many of those people were priests, and they brought the religion with them. And by 1965 or 66, priests were being initiated for the first time here in the United States. Priests of a West African religion being initiated in New York City and then later in Miami. I got initiated in New York City in 1978, though I had moved to the community to live with them in 1969. And in that article, there are beautiful photographs. I got to meet everybody that was in that article. And they became friends of mine and teachers of mine. I was a member of that community. That made me feel really good. It's like, how often do you see folks in a magazine or see